All right, welcome everybody to another Monday Expert Interview. This is the Professor Edition, and we're going to have so much fun that your head might just fall off. What a great opportunity today is going to be for not only the professors to get to know who you are, but they and you get to know each other, and there's opportunities abound to get to know who their students are and to network and to drive this industry forward, because they are leading the way with some of the smartest minds out there getting ready to come into our industry. So on this special series of bringing industry and education together, Dave Cooper and guests push the questions. Can you teach innovation in construction? What are we teaching the building professionals of tomorrow to best prepare them for an industry in need of innovation to solve for global issues like housing affordability and a carbon-constrained future? And can we create a more diverse and inclusive culture along the way? So with this, we have our special co-host, who is no stranger to the Dave Cooper Live Show, Mr. Eric Holt from the University of Denver, Construction Management at the Daniels College of Business, joining us today. We're going to have also George Berghorn, who is Assistant Professor of Construction Management, School of Planning, Design, and Construction, Michigan State University. Molly Smith, who is a firecracker, you just wait and see, who is going to be joining us as well. And Ben Bigelow will be joining us as well. So let's get into our show. Let's bring all of these guests onto the show, and we're going to introduce them one by one. But first, we are going to start with Mr. Eric Holt in the house. What's happening, Eric?
Hey, Dave Cooper. How are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm doing amazingly well. So this is exciting, Eric. So we got Molly coming on, California State University, right? We have George coming on from Michigan State University. We have Ben Bigelow from the University of Oklahoma coming on, and we're going to talk about some super important stuff. And this is all lineups that you have brought together for our show. And I can't thank you enough, because I think this is so important for our industry to make this happen. What's your thoughts on how this is going?
I'm super grateful that you're giving us this platform. I mean, as academics, a lot of times the only time that we get to talk about what we're doing is when we're in our same conferences together as academics, and we don't get to be outside in the real world at times. So we're grateful. The lineup we've got today are, again, more National Association of Home Building student chapter board members and participants and help grant members. And so pretty excited to have this group of colleagues on. They're both friends and enemies, depending on the competition. And just a great group of people leading the industry in teaching innovation and top-notch construction management programs. So thank you again for letting us do this.
Oh, absolutely. I love having all of you on. You know, your universities are kind of like the construction industry. We're really good talking amongst each other, but how do we talk with people outside of our, I guess, circles, so we can grow and expand and really take construction to the next level? Because it truly is the only industry. It hasn't changed in over 100 and some years in any significant way.
Yep. And sometimes academia, we're the same way, or even slower to change. Is academia leading industry, or is industry leading academia? And we all have our opinions about that, but it seems like we're even slower when it comes to teaching and how we react to the industry changes. Right. So this gives us a chance to network together, but also to get out there with industry. We want industry. We want the latest and greatest in our classrooms, in our programs, and venues like this help us do that. So.
Yeah. Well, the industry's changing quickly, right? In past times, we were kind of doing the same thing over and over, and it's easy for the university to keep up with an industry that's not changing very quickly. But now there's a lot of change. There's a lot of innovation. There's a lot of new minds coming into the industry, and change is about. So we're going to get into that. How do you teach this innovation? How do you teach the change that's happening in real time as we speak right now? And these are all challenges that you're going to be facing moving forward as well. So why don't we get all the professors out of the fish tank? Let's bring them into the show one by one, and let's have some fun. What do you think, Eric?
That sounds great to me.
All right. Well, let's start off with Molly from California State University, Fresno, in the house. And Molly is no stranger, not only to the classroom, but in the field. So we're going to have a lot of fun talking with Molly. And we also have Ben Bigelow joining us. Ben, thank you for joining us as well from the University of Oklahoma. Do we have any big rivalries happen here? That's what we need to know. And then somebody else, George Berghorn from Michigan State University, who is no stranger to TV, radio, or podcasts, so I've learned. So he may just take over this show, and I'm going to sit back and watch. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
I have no energy for this today. Can you tell? Can you tell? So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna kind of round horn these questions in this conversation because all of you are doing something a little bit different. Your passions all lie in different places. Everything from doing work and hands-on work in the field, like Molly's been doing, through CLT, mass timber construction, and what Eric's doing at the University of Denver and design and what have you. So let's start off with the first question, and this is the big one. All right. Can you teach innovation in your classrooms? And if you can, what's the best way to do that? And once we get to this question and we round horn, I think it's going to be really, really important to kind of wrap this up, Eric. And I'm thinking what I'll have you wrap it up in a bow on what everybody should be doing and what's out there. But first, guess what, everybody? You're supposed to say what?
What?
What, Dave?
We're live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. And we are live on Twitch. Why, Eric?
Because that's where all the hip and cool kids are. That's why I'm not on it. So
to include Greg Ugaldi, the immediate past chair of the NAHB, always joins us from Twitch. So we're going all the way to the top. All right. So before we get into that first question with all of you, I have to ask, we want to know everything about you. From the moment you were born to this very moment in time. Do not leave out any of the good stuff from the hospital, or Eric will call your mothers. That's just the way it goes, and it has happened. Tell him, Eric.
I've made some very painful phone calls before. So,
Molly, let's kick it off with you. Go ahead. You got 2 minutes to do it.
2 minutes to tell my life story?
2 minutes. You got it.
Well, it was a hot summer day in Fresno when I came along in August. So, not surprisingly, I am a sunshine girl. So, born and raised in Fresno, I'm a third generation. My dad was kind of a weekend warrior. He was a teacher and an administrator. My mother was a teacher. And we built our own cabin in the woods over the course of several summers. So that's kind of how I got involved in construction. And it just kind of built from there. I loved math. I loved art. And my mom pushed me into architecture, and I loved it. Since the age of 7, I wanted to be an architect, and I pursued that with a single-minded determinedness. Graduated from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo with a Bachelor of Architecture degree in 2000, and went from there and just found myself in teaching. The second firm I internshiped all through junior college and college. And thanks, Greg. And went to work for another firm upon graduation from Cal Poly. And with that, met my mentor there, who was teaching because he was a Fresno State CM grad that became an architect. And from there, just started part-time teaching and loved it. Absolutely loved it. Loved the campus, loved the people. Took a little bit of a time out to have 2 kids, and then opportunity came along to be full-time as a residential lecturer, and I jumped at the chance. So it was kismet.
Right. And it all started on a hot, steamy day in California. Perfect. Yeah. Hey, life starts somewhere for everybody. And, for you, and I'm really, really looking forward to talking about your journey and what you're doing in the field. And the building behind you is amazing, by the way. So hopefully you have a story behind that. I'm just kidding. You do?
It's actually not a building. This is one of the many memorials on Fresno State campus designed and built. So
it's
wonderful. The Armenian genocide. I love it because of the architectural nature of it. Right. So I usually pick this one instead of the Henry Madden Library. Everybody picks that one, but I like this one.
Yeah, it's perfect for our show, first of all, and second of all, it just it works really well. I love it. All right, All right, Molly, that's it. We're done on that one. Now we got to move on to George. George Berghorn, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and where it all started for you? And then we'll get to Ben. And then, Eric, I'll let you do your once over. Go ahead, George. Uh-oh. I don't know if you're muted, George, but we don't have any audio for you at the moment.
There we go. I think now we're
there
good.
you are.
So it was a cold, dark, early morning in February in the Bronx, New York at Misericordia Hospital. And I was born to a family of construction folks. My grandfather was a carpenter, got into that after he got out of the Army at the end of World War II. So my whole life grew up around him being a rough carpenter. My uncle is a very fine Finnish carpenter. And as most kids do as they get through school, I decided I wanted to do nothing like what my family had been doing all along. And I left New York City and went to Oklahoma State University. So there's our first rivalry. There's a little OU-OSU thing happening here. Went to Oklahoma State, didn't really care for that move from New York City, came back to New York, but was really interested in the environment. I really thought I was going to be an environmental attorney. So I did environmental science in undergrad. I did political science in undergrad, went to grad school, got a environmental science degree with a focus area in forestry, and then ended up changing gears again, went to work for an engineering company, and I worked as an owner's rep for those guys. I was out in the field putting in remediation systems on contaminated sites and loved the work, just loved what I was doing, thought that this is maybe what I would stick with. Had some carpentry and construction ability from having worked with my grandfather and some neighbors doing HVAC when I was in college. And then got picked up by one of our subcontractors to go be a superintendent for them. So I superintended for a GC that oversaw remedial construction, became a project manager with those guys. I was pretty young, living on the East Coast, had a great job, making probably too much money, more than I should have made for my age at that time, and decided that I really wanted to go back to school and become a teacher, become a professor. It was something I always really loved doing, was training and teaching. So I quit work, moved out to Michigan, kind of sight unseen, came to MSU, worked while I was doing my PhD out here, did a couple of different things. I was a lobbyist for a bunch of years, found my way to a community college where I was a department chair and a dean at our local community college, finished my PhD, opening came up on faculty at MSU, and kind of like Molly said, I jumped at it, jumped at the chance to stay connected to my alma mater and be a faculty member in the program that I grew out of. So it's really been, kind of a third career for me being in higher ed. I'm just wrapping up, or I just wrapped up in May, my 6th year on faculty. And it's been awesome. It's been a great ride and an awesome way to bring kind of that work experience that I had into the classroom.
Yeah, for sure. We have a show on Fridays called Building Science that we do BS Fridays. And I tell you, we talk about building science and building above codes all the time on that show. So that's a show you definitely want to check out. And hey, a lobbyist. Did you hear that? Greg Ugaldi is a lobbyist. Greg Ugaldi, the immediate past chairman at NAHB. We always need good lobbyists in DC helping us get everything either approved or not letting certain things that hurt the industry get approved. So I think that's a great story. And George, thank you for sharing that. Sorry it wasn't a hot, steamy day on your day of inception here into the end of the world. All right, Ben. Ben, you've been sitting there quiet. I warmed Ben up a little bit this morning. He's going to rock and roll. Now, Ben, hop into it.
Very good. Unfortunately, I don't remember anything that happened on my birthday all those years ago, but I generally claim the Dallas area or Southern Utah as home. Went to high school in the Dallas area. Launched off into in high school working for a contractor, and because that paid better than any other job I could pick up. My dad was in the life insurance business, so really didn't have any background or family connections to construction, and thought that was just going to be a great way to make some dough when I was younger, and ultimately started my own contracting firm doing remodeling and that type of work, and was well on my way to becoming a dentist of all things. And Right before I was applying to dental school, I decided that I needed to go get a construction degree. So I transferred, went to Texas A&M, got a bachelor's degree in construction science, and graduated with 199 credit hours. So for those who have been in college, that's an awful lot. Went and worked for a production home builder in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and then Phoenix, Arizona. Was doing that at the height of the bubble in 2006, 7, and I saw the writing on the wall. Things didn't look good, and I thought it was only going to get worse. So I bailed out and started doing my master's degree full-time at Arizona State, and wrapped up my master's degree and decided that if I was going to get a PhD, it would probably be easier to do it while I was young and stupid than when I was older and gainfully employed. So then I moved to Colorado, got my PhD at Colorado State University. And since then, I've been teaching professor. I spent 6 years at Texas A&M, and I've been at the University of Oklahoma for 4 years now. And anyway, so that's a little bit about me.
Great. I appreciate all of that. All right, Eric, you are no stranger to the Dave Cooper Live Show. You're no stranger to the National Association of Home Builders. In fact, none of you are, and we're going to talk about that in a second. Eric, go ahead. Give us your elevator pitch. I'm only giving you 30 seconds.
Only 30 seconds. All right. I've had an eclectic career in construction. I'm a Purdue University graduate, boy up. Been a building inspector, lumberyard sales, and production home builder job site babysitter. Got into doing design work back in the 2000s and have been doing design consulting. And then when the market crashed in 2007, hit out in academia and got my graduate degrees. And I've been at the University of Denver now for 6 years, something like that. 10 years plus in academia, 29 years in industry. And my eclectic career makes for being a very good professor, since I'm not very good at anything else. So,
oh, that's not true at all. In fact, before we move into that first question, Eric, you have helped write studies, you and your students in the university, for the housing endowment, right? You do work with National Association of Home Builders. In fact, all of you do. Why don't we talk about what your relationship is there, so everybody understands that the universities are really involved in the trade associations within the building world. So go ahead. Why don't you tell us? You're all part of the student chapter. Yes.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
That's right.
We all sit on the board of the NHB Student Chapter Advisory Board. We both help manage and participate in their student competition. Shout out to Michigan State. They won first place twice in a row last couple of years. That's not been done very often. And so all of us have been heavily involved. That's where I know these guys from and gals. So.
But that's part of the collaboration. That's part about driving it forward. That's part about staying in the know, so you can go back to your students with more information and share information, as well as know what competitions are happening out there and how do you get involved, what grants are out there. I mean, there's so many reasons to be part of the organization. And Molly, it looks to me like you actually have somebody that really likes you there. You know, a Gregory Zick by chance? Go Molly. NAHB loves you.
Greg's awesome. It's because, as you said, I'm a firecracker. I've probably been here the least amount of time involved in NAHB. I jumped in, like I said, the full-time position opened up. I got hired. I started in the summer to start developing curriculum because I was hired under the HELP grant. I know we're going to be talking about stuff like that. And so I went to Portland for the NAHB mid-year meeting. And that's where I met Eric and Ben and George, and they welcomed me with open arms. And I just jumped in with both feet and joined the board and started collaborating and working with everybody, because it was the best welcoming into this. Because I being not necessarily a new professor, but a new full-time professor, and being basically handed the reins and said, "Here, you're in charge of residential. You're it. And we really don't have a program because you're going to help develop it." And my department was very supportive in ensuring that I could meet everyone and go and do all this. And I have a very, very deep love for the NAHB. They have provided a lot of opportunity for us to network, to learn, and to provide opportunities for our students, which is incredibly valuable because, like I said earlier, I'm a Cal Poly San Luis grad. I believe in learn by doing. And so getting your hands in there, there's no better way to learn. Just immerse yourself in it.
Well, and Molly does so much for the board and for the NHB. The rest of us kind of sit back and bask in her glory. So
Molly taking the lead. You know, Eric, your honesty is just so rewarding. I have to tell you, it's refreshing. It is refreshing. But one of the things that I've learned just in this intro is you're not only teaching from an educational standpoint, you're all teaching from experience as well. Right. And this is super important for everybody to understand, you know, working at lumber yards, being in the field, swinging a hammer, teaching the basics, because not only does it take the universities, it also takes the trades to work with the higher education side of it, because neither can perform without the other. Period. That's, right. That's all there is to it. All right. So let's get into this. And Molly, I'll ask you first. You know, how are we teaching innovation to the students? Our industry is changing super, super fast. How do we teach innovation to the students at Fresno?
It's interesting because being the new academic, I learned hands-on building a family cabin, renovating. When I first got married, my husband and I, we renovated an English tutor lovingly for 10 years, bringing it back to glory. So things like that, teaching students that there is a lot to learn from all ramifications, all the different facets at an industry that you're going to go into. I don't think we're the only college that requires an internship before graduating to ensure these students know what they're getting into, to give them any experience, to help them see what the foundation we're building for them in education will provide them as a jump off, as a springboard for when they're out there gaining experience. So.
And the experience is critical in all of this, because we've all learned over the years, especially in years past versus today, because things are changing so rapidly with 3D and BIM, that, you know, things on paper don't always work out in the field.
Right. As an architect, I can tell you that there's nothing more humbling than having the contractor meet with you and tell you, you're going to need to be the one out in the field screwing that bolt because you've got the smallest hands, girl. So, yeah. I don't know about everybody else, but I really think that, especially for construction, we are definitely a hands-on, in-person industry, and innovation happens every day. And so teaching our students that, telling them to keep their eyes open and to never stop learning. That's how you teach innovation, is that they understand that they will never stop learning because there's always new things out there.
And that's you hit it right on the head with that statement. You know, we can try to teach static topics. What's the latest and greatest development in X? But by the time we might teach it, that development could be on its way out, or the next generation of that technology may be coming into place. So I think it's really what Molly said. It's more about teaching students that learning doesn't stop when they cross the stage and get their diploma, showing them by personal example how that doesn't stop, whether that's from ourselves in our current job and our current incarnation, or what we've done in the past. And a story that I love telling my students, because it really drives the point home, is my very first day as a superintendent working for this contractor in New Jersey. I got put out on a job site to be the fill-in for the health and safety officer on the site. It was an Army base, old Army base that was bracked, and we were doing subsurface work. And we found unexploded ordnance the day that I was the fill-in health and safety officer. And I didn't know what the heck to do about unexploded ordnance except, you know, go find something that, yeah, right. And all of a sudden, everyone's looking at me. All of our foremen, all of our trades guys are going, "Hey, boss, what do we do?" And guess what? You know, you got to figure it out. You got to take the resources that are available to you, and you got to figure it out, because sitting there and freezing up and saying, "I don't know," and "I don't know how to respond," is not an option. Can't do it, right? So I use that story to show my students that, you know, hey, you might think that becoming a superintendent is the pinnacle, right? That's where you want to get. And it doesn't matter, because as a superintendent, you're going to run into things that you don't know how to do, and you're going to have to figure it out for the sake of your team, for the sake of your project.
And try
Sure.
and go.
I hope you called the bomb squad.
Yeah. So fast forward to the solution, right? We
You're
called.
still with us. Let me see all your
Yeah, I
fingers.
got all 10 fingers. Yep. We called EOD at Explosive Ordnance Disposal. It's now Joint Base Dix Lakehurst up in central New Jersey. They came down. They helped us create a plan. We up-armored our excavators on site. We figured out how to weld plate steel and bulletproof glass on the enclosures, and we drove on. We kept moving, right?
Great. That's an awesome story. So George, while you're going, innovation in the classroom. So you talk about how to, that's part of being able to make decisions and think critically on site when something comes up. But with the students and with the change in the industry, on a day-to-day, especially during COVID with all the Zoom and everything else, how were you teaching innovation and helping these students see past just the textbook?
Absolutely. Great question. So last fall, I took over teaching our residential capstone. And of course, it was all delivered by Zoom, 5 hours straight. It was a 5-hour block of time on Zoom, which sounds like, torture for just about everybody. And what we do with that class is things are purposefully left open-ended. I've adopted the NAHB student competition problem set for the entire capstone class. So all of our students are working on a well-developed industry-led project, and there's holes in that project, right? There's incomplete answers, there's incomplete information. And so every week we would break that 5 hours up into some time on task, maybe learning a new task or brushing up on scheduling. Maybe you haven't touched scheduling for a year since you took your scheduling class. Well, let's have an hour and brush up your ability to develop a schedule. But then we spent a lot of time really digging into what are the right questions to ask and what are the places to go to get the answers to those questions. So when students look at it and say, I don't understand what the zoning ordinances are like down here in North Carolina, and I don't even know how to figure out what the right answer is to find the right zoning ordinance, we just work through that together as a group, right? Okay, how do you ask the questions? How do you figure out where the information is? How do you figure out what the right information is? And then move that forward into your plan.
Right. For sure. Question for you, and I'm not sure you're going to like it or not, but it's coming from Greg Zick. George, how are you so good at leading your competition to take first place? No pressure with all your colleagues around you. Go ahead. We want the secret sauce. They want to know. They want the secret sauce. Let's go.
It comes down to recruiting, I think. I'm really careful about how I recruit students to come to the competition. I ask students specifically about their experience being in team environments in the past. So I get a lot of high school or even some college athletes because one of the questions I actually talk to them about isn't so much like, were you a great swimmer or cross country runner, but how are you at taking coaching? And that's what a kid who's participated in organized sports has the ability to do, right? Take coaching, right? Understand how to take the lessons to heart, not take it personally, and seek to improve their performance.
Well, there's a great answer. So all of you use these techniques moving forward. George, you're going to have to share the playbook though, because everybody likes to be a winner. I know Eric was part of a winning team recently with the Solar Decathlon group, and I'm sure all of you have. So we'll get into some of that and what your students are doing, because we would be remiss if we weren't talking about our students on this show, right?
Absolutely.
So, all right, Ben, you've been sitting there awfully quiet. We're going to have to go. We're going to have to get some now. The world's waiting to hear the intelligent mind of Ben Bigelow. So go for it, Ben. How do you teach innovation in your classroom?
Well, I definitely second what Molly and George had to say about teaching students to be lifelong learners, because George is absolutely right. Like, the reality is, if we try to teach a specific technology, by the time it gets into our classroom, it's probably obsolete by the time the students graduate. And so it's really all about teaching the students to continue learning and investigating. But I think another real piece is in the way that we structure our classes and the way we teach. We can't just teach students that this is the way things are, that here's how you do it and you just go do it that way. I think this is the biggest challenge that we face in the construction industry, whether it's home building or the commercial side. It's about, if you go ask somebody why they do something the way they do, too often they just say, well, this is how I was taught. This is the way I learned it. And they don't understand the why. They don't understand why they do the things the way they do. And I think really to drive innovation in construction and change in our industry, we have to cultivate a generation in the industry that says, why am I doing it this way? What is the reason? Because if the reason just is this is the way it's always been done, then construction will never move forward, right? We will never innovate. It'll continue to flounder.
Yeah, very true. We always have to be looking towards the future. To me, it's almost a crime that our industry is so far behind compared to where other industries have gone. And I keep reaching out to Elon Musk. He has not returned my phone calls yet. But Elon, if you are listening, your cars have wheels, they spin. You should be charging our houses, not our houses charging your car. Just saying. Anyhow, maybe if you guys know him, maybe, I think he's in California a lot, or he's moving from California. Maybe Molly, you can help us out with that. All right. Can you make some phone calls?
I'll see what I can do, Dave.
I love it. All right, everybody, we are live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Please hit that like and share button right now. If you do have questions, and we're going to have questions, put a Q in front of it moving forward. And if you are not following Molly, Eric, George, and Ben, you need to be following them. You're wrong if you're not. They are driving the industry forward. Here's the great news about what we're doing, and I said it in the intro. This is an opportunity for you out there in the field, in the manufacturing, in the supply chain, that is looking for young, great minds to be able to connect with the people that are teaching the young, great minds. And we're not only talking on a university level, but these universities also work with the local communities on a regular basis, high school, trade schools, and so forth. So they're great resources for everybody out there. So we appreciate that, and we look forward to the opportunity to be able to share that with you out there. So if you are watching this, I have a question for you. Is there something that we should be doing better with the universities? Is there a trade that we should have bringing these universities together with all of you out there? Give us your thoughts and ideas on what we should do. How do we help you find young, bright minds? Because everybody keeps saying we can't find anybody. Can't find anybody to work for us. Can't find anybody. But I'm seeing them everywhere. So it'll be good to have that in the comments a little bit. All right. Where are we going next, Eric? Where do you want to jump into here? We can talk about critical thinking. I think that's a big part of this. And George was talking a little bit about critical thinking when it came to, bomb, disposal with the DOE. And that's about as critical as one can get. But how do each of you teach critical thinking within your universities to these students? So they come out not as a robot, but they come out really being able to take their mind and solve problems, or not get defensive when a contractor says, hey, Molly, I really like your design, but sorry, it kind of sucks because I can't get my ductwork through there, right? That's the kind of stuff that happens. So you got to be able to critically think on the job and not let your brain be so big as well that you can't get past what you drew. So go ahead. We'll start with whoever wants to start. Ben, why don't you kick this one off? How do you teach critical thinking?
I think critical thinking is an interesting question in academia, right? Because for educators everywhere, it's much easier to teach multiple choice, true, false kind of tests and questions for students. But it really requires a commitment from the individual educators. I don't think it's so much how we teach, but an instructor's commitment to teaching, to their true interest in the students gaining something more and learning. And so that's, for me, it really comes down to teamwork, right? Having the right team who are teaching your students. It's one thing that I love about the University of Oklahoma. We have an awesome team of faculty who really care that the students take away from what they learn. They're not just there to lecture, to spill information out and hope that the students absorb some of it. That's not very specific, I apologize, but I really believe that's what it comes down to with teaching students in that regard.
For sure. How about you, George?
A lot of my students will tell you that, and maybe I drive them nuts with this at times, but always ask why. I mean, just always. Never take things on face value. Never accept And that goes for me too, right? Like, you shouldn't just take something that I say in class and write it down because, Dr. B said it. You should ask why. And so I do it to them, and I encourage them to do it with me. And, you see the evolution of it. I teach some sophomore level classes. I teach a senior level class and a grad class. You see the evolution of it over time, where at first the sophomores are a little bit like, you want us to question you about things that you say in class? That's kind of strange. And then, as we get through to the higher levels, it just becomes sort of part of the gig, right? And I hope, my hope is that students are then taking that and applying that in other parts of their life, that it's not just for the 50 minutes that we're together a couple of times a week, but that they're doing the same thing when they see some talking head on TV saying something about whatever, that they're going to ask why and go out and seek out the information.
Or come up with their own ideas, for sure.
Yeah.
Eric, what about you?
So it's teaching them how to ask questions and allowing them to ask questions. I mean, just because I got a PhD in the classroom and supposedly the expert in the room, I'm not. I've got my life experience and the lens and the things I've done, but that's not the end all be all. And letting them know that day one, and then designing the course so they have to read and see latest and greatest in industry, and then bring those to lecture. I'm moving away from the traditional verbal throwing up on them for an hour and a half every week to, you guys got to tell me about what's going on. Let's have a discussion in class. At DU, the two classes I teach are what's really neat is that they're cross-listed together, both the grad version or the grad section and the undergrad. And that allows the grad students know how to ask questions. And so the undergrads see that and learn by mentoring and osmosis by being there. And so it's pretty cool that I get to do that with the students, and they don't like it. I mean, I get that in the teacher evaluations, they just want a traditional lecture. And it's like, you're not going to get that. You're going to have to think, you're going to have to ask questions, and you're going to have a discussion. And that gets them in that mindset. So when they graduate, that's how the real world works.
Sure. You got to. So it's like my son, right? He's 5 years old. He never stops asking questions. Why?
We turn that off and we tell them to quit that because they drive us nuts. And then when they get to college, we want them to do it again. So
that's right. So that's how you should start off every year with a new class. You are now a 5-year-old. And your only job is to ask a lot of questions and question me, and Molly, I'm going to get you on this. And a story, when I was in Georgia, Athens, UGA, I wasn't going to school there. I was out in one night, and there was a guy standing there, and the kids were kind of harassing him a little bit. And he looked at me, he goes, I have a PhD. He says, what do you mean a PhD? He goes, yeah, panhandling dogs. He was the hot dog guy. He goes, I make $80,000 a year tax-free off all of you. So I don't know who's talking, just having some fun, but ask questions because you really don't know what people are doing and where they're going. So it was a funny scenario. All right, Molly, let's hear it. Let's talk about how you're teaching critical thinking in your world.
Well, similar to what Eric was talking about, I know I'm talkative, but I like a conversation. And so I tell my students I have a conversational style. They're going to lead it. They have the information. They have everything beforehand. I'm trying to do more of a flipped kind of classroom so that when we come together, it's a discussion of what did you find interesting? What didn't you find interesting? What's good? What's bad? What do you think we need to look to? And the other thing I teach my students all the time is that we're always learning. I told them I have 20 plus years of experience. I started right out of high school working in the architecture field as an intern. But all of the experience of building a cabin and working on residential homes in my free time, swinging hammers and doing design, I told them, and now I'm getting a master's degree. I went and as an architect, I got certified in safety and health because I thought it was important for our students to have someone certified in that. And I told the department, hey, I don't mind. I'll go learn. I love to learn. And so showing them and modeling to them that we never stop learning because there's always another question to ask. There's always innovation. I remind them, I remember way back when my family got a first computer. And technology, it's something I drive into my lower division students when I teach materials, especially. I remember when the fax machine was such a wonderful invention for bidding, because it gave us that little bit more time to fine tune numbers. And now we have email, and fax machines are pretty much useless. And I tell them that. I go, I remember phones had cords when I was growing up, and now we carry a mini computer with us and play on it constantly. And that's what I tell them. I go, you guys, you can't stop. You have to ask questions. You have to keep your minds open. You will never, ever, ever reach the pinnacle of knowledge, ever. Unless you decide to be ignorant and stop learning and stop exposing yourself to the world. Because you never know where you're going to find something new.
Yeah, I once heard that the phones that we carry around today are more powerful than the computer that Ronald Reagan used in the White House.
Yeah.
If that says anything, and what we have to deal with and learn and what have you. So, okay, listen, let's talk about what the students are doing and what is so important for all of you. Are all of you back to university, like full-time classrooms now? Everybody back? Coming up in the fall, I suppose. Yeah.
It's kind of iffy that we're doing sort of a hybrid, because we know some students may not be back. We're still waiting for CDC, California Health, and all of the regulatory people to make a decision. But I'll be on campus. It's just a question of how many students per classroom and how many will have to then be synchronous or asynchronously virtual.
Sure.
Yeah.
So
we're back.
Go ahead, Eric. You're back?
We're back face to face, but we're still doing things online because I've got student athletes or people with exceptions or grad students that are working. And so I'm always going to be in high flex or hybrid mode. So.
Dan, how about yourself?
We are fully in person this fall, no restrictions. So we've been doing some modified stuff the last 2 semesters, but yeah, we're generally normal coming this fall semester. Pretty excited about it.
Sure. And George, you still putting out bombs out there?
Yeah. left that behind a long time ago. Yeah, we're back in person this fall, except for the very, very biggest classes on campus, which doesn't impact us. So.
Sure. All right. So we've talked about teaching innovation. We talked about teaching critical thinking. How do we teach construction students the importance of design and design students the importance of construction? How do you get that message apart? How do you get that message to each of them?
I'm going to date myself, guys. You guys, hopefully, I think you're older than me, or about my age. Anyway, I always remind my students to go look up the Brady Bunch. Mike Brady he did it all from his little office, being an architect and building. And I tell them all the time, that is not the world we live in. You don't even live in a world where you go to work and you're only collaborating with the people in your office. You could be collaborating with people in a completely different time zone on the other side of the world, having fun, trying to coordinate times to meet so that someone's not meeting in the middle of the night. You're going to have the two jack of all trades. I tell my students this all the time. The CMs and the architects are either side of the construction industry coin. On the design side, you've got the architect who's the jack of all trade. And on the other side, you're going to have your CM who's the jack of all trade. You have to know a lot or a little bit about a lot. But you're going to have your support people, consultants, subcontractors that are going to be the experts of something in particular. And we all have to collaborate. And as things are changing, I mean, I'm starting to think, more about integrated project delivery, design build, as we are looking at housing affordability and things like that, different ways of doing things. And I tell my students, you have to collaborate and you have to understand the other person's job. Like I said earlier, you can't design in a box. You have to know how something goes together. And one of my most favorite classes at Cal Poly was we had to build a concrete fountain. It was our concrete design class, and we had to do everything. I have the scars from the rebar on my hands still. Yes. And that's what I love. Teaching my students to get in there, and learn. I teach the architect. We just started an architectural studies program. I tell them, the same thing. We're going to have a integrative lab that's being spearheaded by Brad Hyatt and Michelle Randall in our department, where we're going to have the architecture students working side by side with the CM students, building, designing together. We're going to have upper division students that are going to project controls over the lower division students who are going to be the tradespeople, so that everybody will have the stepping stone of learning. Everything about a lot of our classes, especially as you go up into the upper divisions, is about collaboration.
Right.
It's the only way we're going to move forward.
Well, we're going to continue with this topic, but we're going to go to some comments and questions real fast here. It's we're already 49 minutes into us. I told you this would go fast, and I told you it'd be fun, right? Yes.
Yes,
Oh,
Dave.
this is fun.
Thank you. Is this
We're
what it's like in your
academics. You're never
classroom?
going to get us to be quiet. We're academics. We just want to talk.
By the
We
word.
don't know how to shut up.
Oh, you
That's
get paid by the word. Perfect. All right, let's go to the first comment / question. Gregory, all right, this Mr. Zick. I haven't heard from you from a while, but you're busy today. It's good to see you, Greg Zick, who helps run up the student chapter. So everybody knows Greg Zick very well. He does a lot of wonderful things at National Association of Home Builders. So I'm very grateful that you're tuning in. And is that a dog? It's a really cute dog too. All right, go Molly. NHB loves you. So we've seen that comment. Let's move on to the next comment, please. Greg Ugaldi. Bam. All right, Greg Ugaldi. If you do not know Greg Ugaldi, he is the immediate past chair of NAHB, and he also comes on this show once a month to talk about updates and where we're going and what we're doing. And not only does he come on the show, he also brings wonderful guests who are at the top of their game, talking about how they help us grow our industry and protect our industry. So Greg from Twitch is joining us. So thanks, Greg. Gilbert Meyer. We have to erase our building technology from the minds of young engineers and designers and start inventing from scratch. MMC3 technology was designed without previous knowledge of how a home is built, all the way from Honduras. Gilbert's in Honduras with their system, and he's right. Some of the things that we're doing now, you need to just have a fresh mind come in. And this comes back to asking a lot of questions. Just because you have a PhD does not mean you're the smartest person in the classroom, right? It really does not. It just means that you've got yourself educated enough to hang out with the smartest people in the classrooms, hopefully with all the students who need that critical thinking to question, why are we still doing it this way? That we need more of it. I agree with that. NAHB student chapters chiming in. Student chapter is so successful because of our amazing active board members like Molly, Eric, Ben, and George. Wonderful job guiding and shaping student programming. I agree. I concur. So far, I like them all. All right, Jennifer said, I love the reference to team sports, collaboration, and critical thinking. George S. Berghorn. Yep, that is a very, very good comment as well. I agree with that. All right, Jennifer, what do we got? Mark Purcell. Love the help schools. Thanks for all you do. See, you got a lot of support out here. This is amazing.
Plug the help grant. Everybody go to the National Housing Endowment. They're one of the few residential champions in the industry with grant money that they help formulate, and they help provide money to build residential programs. I'm a product of the help grant. I've gotten 3 of them now at 3 different universities. They have pretty much shaped my academic career. Mark and Karima, they're at the National Housing Endowment. Thank you guys for all you do. You make it rain on us lowly professors.
Yeah, Mark Purcell was on the show recently as well, so go back and check that out. If you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, you can watch all of these episodes over and over again. And I have to tell you, we have grown and grown and grown on our YouTube channel. We're now up to 1.4 thousand hours every 28 days being consumed. That's a lot of hours. And our content is, we're gaining a couple hundred followers a week right now. It's growing that fast. So thanks for all the support out there, but go watch it because you can watch all of these. And if you missed any of this conversation and you just can't get enough of Ben, George, Molly, and Eric, you can go back and watch them over and over and over again until it's probably a little insane, but that's your choice. All right, what do we have next? Tom, ready. Synergy, steel in the house. For innovation to be successful in the industry, it needs to be a solution to an issue that delivers a ROI. That ROI can be monetary, schedule improvements, schedule attainment, less materials, less scrap, improved insurance premiums, or some. Without some type of ROI, it's not going to stick. What are you seeing as ROIs from the innovation that's blending technology and years of building knowledge? Who would like to take that first?
I'd love to take that one. Tom, that's a great point that you made. And a lot of the work that I've been doing recently has been on mass timber construction, CLT and glulam. And what we're seeing there, ROI is discussed in two, sometimes what we think of as very disparate terms. There's a lot of discussion about schedule and cost ROI, and then there's a lot of discussion about environmental performance and ROI that comes in from that perspective because of carbon sequestration, with the material itself, carbon that's not being emitted, so deferred or avoided emissions from other, maybe more conventional materials that the timber displaces. But again, because of the method, the material in a way isn't new. I mean, CLT is new, glulam's not new. The idea of timber frame buildings isn't new, but the way we're applying it is new. And so where it's really started to initially capture people's attention is it's a faster building system. Indirect costs can be reduced because of that speed of construction. Trade turnover can happen faster, so you're getting your trades in and out quicker off your site, quicker. You're moving from floor to floor quicker in those buildings. And now, kind of the next interest area that we're looking at is how do you take mass timber technique, combine it with offsite and modular techniques to deliver more affordable housing. So now there's the other, sort of the next ROI, right? Like, how do we get more affordable housing on the ground that, oh, by the way, also happens to be highly sustainable and contributes to this idea of a carbon-free or a reduced carbon future.
And building on that, I think a big issue we face in our industry is there's far too many builders that the ROI is only considered in terms of dollars and hard dollars. They're not able to consider the impacts that a reduced schedule has on carrying costs, on any of those things. And so, Tom's comment about ROI is spot on. And I think we have an obligation in the industry to teach builders and to learn that ROI is more than just the hard cost. We just finished a study last year about panelization and panelization usage in Texas and Oklahoma. And one of the things that we found was that there were an awful lot of builders moving away from it. But the reason they were moving away is because they couldn't recognize the ROI beyond, well, this cost more than my regular lumber pack. They couldn't look deeper at where their savings were or what their return looked like. So I think there's some important understanding here that oftentimes gets overlooked in our industry.
So are you teaching, how to value offsite construction? It's more than just cost. Are you looking at the full life cycle of a job and teaching that with your students?
So I think it's not a specific topic that's being taught, but we absolutely are teaching the students to look at things creatively, look at how you can do it. The offsite construction can be a great solution, particularly when schedule constraints are an issue, right? There's really no better way to reduce the schedule on a build time than to have things that are done off site and then brought on site. And so really, I would say what we're teaching our students to do is to look and say, all right, what are our constraints and what's our best opportunity given the constraints? If the build time is not a constraint, then offsite construction may not be the best solution. But when there's a constraint in the schedule, then yeah, absolutely, this is an avenue that has to be considered in some form or another. Whether that's full-blown modules, little bitty pieces, or even just panelization, like the study that we did last year. It was just looking at panelized frame components versus stick framing everything.
Sure. So speaking of panelization and components and what we have going on this week, we will be live on location tomorrow at Integra. So I'm excited to have everybody join us for that show. We're going to be doing a live factory tour at Integra. And then Thursday, we're going to be live on location at Mighty Buildings 3D printing. So be sure to join us for that as well. So, all right, love it. All right, let's go back to another comment. I want to finish up and wrap up by asking George, how do we bring the design and construction industry together? Let's hear it from you.
So I think one of the things that the way we approach it in our program anyway at MSU is again, we go back to what are those metrics of success in construction projects, and we try to get beyond that conventional direct costs or first costs only look, but really look at a big picture of what do those success metrics look like within the industry. And then we back into how various forms of integrated delivery can help improve that performance. So whether it's design assist, design build, IPD, whatever the case may be, really starting to get students focusing in on this idea that they play a big role in this integrated process as future CMs and GCs. The other thing that I have a little bit of fun with my sophomore level green building class is we start with 3 or 4 weeks really that's more on the design side, get them kind of into the idea of, you know, who's Frank Lloyd Wright, who are some other big sort of sustainable designers of their time, and how do we see those principles transferring forward to buildings that are being built today, and really start to get their mind thinking around some of those design decisions, material selection decisions, what sort of criteria are used when those things are made, and talk to them about the fact that they're not out of that process, right? That even if they were going to work for a GC, they are not out of the material selection process, and they have a voice and they have a contribution to make in that regard as they enter the industry.
Yeah, they for sure.
Go ahead.
Dave, you're muted.
Lag time here. But you're absolutely right with that. Here we are. We're back. I love it. Okay, going back now. Let's wrap up that same conversation if we could with Eric as well. So George, Ben, Molly, you guys have all been awesome on this, but this is going to be the part of our conversation. How do we get both sides talking to each other, right? How do you get the design side and the construction side talking amongst each other? Who wants to go first?
I'll go.
Ben, house. Let's go, Ben.
I'm going to fire away. You know, one of the real advantages we have, we're actually located in the College of Architecture. So we have architecture students and construction students. And this is an issue we talk about regularly as administrators. How do we get these students together, whether it's in the classroom, in formal class settings, or informally taking field trips? Because what we really believe is if they can learn to respect what the other profession does, they're going to communicate better and they're going to work better together. We actually just finished a really awesome project with our students. We built our students built a mobile medical clinic for a local tribe in central Oklahoma. There's a link. I couldn't share it in the chat, but if y'all want to share it, I gave it to Jennifer.
There it is.
But these kinds of opportunities to get them to integrate now, you know, architecture and construction has a long history of button heads. And we really believe that if we can get them to be friends while they're in college, while they're in school, that's going to translate to how they operate on a professional playing field when they graduate.
I think Lag's got him.
Dave's muted again. Well, George, what are you doing?
Can you hear me now?
Oh.
Got it. All right. I'm not sure what's going on there. All right, Eric. So, you know, how do we bring design and how do we bring the people in the field so they can see through each other's eyes together and make all of this happen? So why don't you wrap us up with that, Eric, and we'll call it a day.
I think you bringing in the industry to the classroom, just like we do bringing innovation in by bringing innovative industry people and companies to the classroom. It's hard for a CM program a lot of times because we don't have a design element. Well, have architects and engineers come in and talk to the students and explain the technology and the wording and the language. And so that's what we do here at the University of Denver is I bring design professionals, design innovators, architects, engineers into the classroom for students to pepper questions. And I tell the industry, you know, you're going to get to teach future construction manager leaders how to work with you? What do you want them to know now instead of having the battle and fight that fight in the field? And so bringing industry of both sides, design and construction, together in the classroom gets the students going. So
you're 100% right. And students are more connected today than we ever were growing up. At least I know for myself anyhow, and Eric, they're connected by the phone. Whether they go to be a framer or whether they go on to get a PhD and teach at a university, they're still playing Fortnite together at night. We didn't have that growing up, and I think they're more connected today than ever. And there is that kind of camaraderie that I think can happen between the field today and the higher education side. So listen, all of you, thank you so much for everything that you do out there. Really, really do appreciate you. And everybody that tuned in. I mean, Eric, you got some fans going on there. Eric, Eric's out there, Good Day, Mark Purcell's been chiming in and chatting in, and Tom and everybody else. We really appreciate all of the support that everybody's been bringing for all of you. And I truly hope if you're watching this show, you reach out personally on LinkedIn or however to Ben, Eric, Molly, and George and start talking with them. Start a conversation. They're always looking for great ideas for their students and what they can bring to the classroom, especially with the Zoom and what have you. So if you're out there and they go back to Zoom, they need your help more than ever. At least that's my opinion. I'm just going to put that out there. But on the other side of it as well, we need their help and we need their great minds and we need access to their students to come to our industry. We don't want them to graduate and go work at telecom. We want them to come into the construction world. So this is an opportunity for all of us. Perfect. Eric, thank you so much for pulling this awesome panel together. I'm glad everybody played nice in the sandbox, even though you're different universities. I watch these football and basketball battles you guys all go back and forth on. So thank you for playing nice with each other. And I hope each and every one of you have an awesome week and an awesome summer, right? If you're on your summer break.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. Listen, so don't go anywhere. I will come back to all of you after the outro, and everybody else out there, please hit that like and share button one more time and join us live tomorrow, 1 p.m. We will be at Integra, one of the most highly automated panelization manufacturing facilities in the country. You do not want to miss this, and Jerry is a character that you'll have a lot of fun with talking to. And then on Thursday, we will be showing you 3D printing at Mighty Buildings in Oakland, California. We will be live on location there as well. So there's some great things. Put that out to your students, send them the links. We have LinkedIn events created, so you can go there and sign up so you are notified when it happens. Outside of that, we have a busy couple of days coming up. We are traveling the country, so professors, if you'd like us to stop by your university at any time and say hello and do our show, we always love bringing the students into what we do. And everybody else out there, reach out to us anytime. We hope all is well. We'll come back. Goodbye now.